Always wonderful to hear John Denver. Well, good morning and welcome to Granite Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Prescott, Arizona. I'm Leslie Grady, your worship associate today, and we extend a warm welcome to all of you, our guest speaker and our friend Doug Bland and his wife Amy, and those of you on Zoom. Hi, everybody. If you are visiting, there will be an opportunity at the end of the service to introduce yourself. We are glad you are able to join us and hope you are in good health. This is the mission statement of our congregation. There so much. And now please put your phone on worship mode. So before we begin our service, we have a few announcements. We are a busy congregation, so be sure to read the announcements found in the order of service, the weekly peek on our website, and Reverend Patty's videos for updates and announcements. Our regular weekly Zoom meetings are Together Wednesday Forum, Wednesday afternoon faith development classes, and Friday lunch with the minister. For the month of February, we will be meeting with Granite Peak President and tech person, Elaine Hayes. Bev and Robert, our children's faith development program leaders, have resumed in-person classes for pre-K in the nursery, and the older children meet in the faith development building across the street. Please bring food pantry items on Sunday mornings if you attend the 10 a.m. service. That way, we can restock the pantry shelves before people begin arriving on Fridays. Please place your donated items in the stainless steel cart. So that should be easy to do and get a lot of food for the food pantry. Well, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker today, the last one for February, and it's been such a great month to hear all these wonderful people. So today we welcome Reverend Doug Bland. Doug is the founder and executive director of Arizona Interfaith Power and Light, a spiritual response to the climate crisis. As a new grandfather of a cute little 8-month-old boy, he has yet another reason to care for the future of our precious planet home. He retired from the Community Christian Church in Tempe, where he served as a pastor for 23 years. The church's interreligious and multicultural storytelling concerts earned the Diversity Award from the Tempe Human Relations Commission. He has served as adjunct faculty at the South Mountain Community College Storytelling Institute. We begin our service in the Unitarian Universalist tradition of lighting the chalice. Our chalice lighter this morning is Patrick Grady.
You do that now, Patrick? We light this chalice, a symbol of our heritage in gratitude for this beloved community. Well, welcome everybody. It's great to be with you. Thank you for your hospitality and the hospitality of Leslie and Patrick. We had a great hike yesterday in the snow up in the Ponderosa Pines, and was a beautiful way to start the weekend. So I have a warning and an invitation for you. The warning, I've been doing this work, teaching and preaching for about 40 years. And during that time, often I've asked the members of my congregation, when have you felt closest to the divine? And I'm sorry to have to tell you that not one time in 40 years did anybody ever say, Pastor, I felt closest to the divine during your sermons. So that's my warning to you today. The invitation is, I'd like you to think about those times and those places in your life where you have felt closest to the divine, because the people, after they tell me, they didn't feel closest to God during my sermons, I'd ask them, so when did you feel closest? And they said, on top of a mountain, or hiking at the beach, or a stroll through the desert, or camping near a stream. So I'd like you to think about those times and those places in your life where you, like Moses, standing in front of the burning bush, knew that you were standing on holy ground. Now, there's a pretty broad definition of what holy is here. It's those times and places where you felt most connected to yourself, body, mind, and spirit, to nature, to the divine, however you define the divine, to the natural world around you. So think about those times, and then during the sermons, if it's boring, or if I lose you at some point, you can go in your imagination to those places and times, and you'll have a great worship experience today. So I'll leave you with that warning and that invitation.
And now enjoy Colors of the Wind by Vanessa Williams.
Okay, we have to take a little pause. Hi, people on Zoom. Can somebody chat and tell me if you can hear now? Okay, yes. So can you all hear, are you hearing a lot of feedback? Those here, you may have to deal with a little bit of feedback because for some reason we're having trouble with the voice on the Zoom. And so if we unmute here, there may be feedback between the mic and the computer. So since they didn't hear the first part of the service, we may have to deal with feedback on the second part of the service. But no feedback on Zoom, and you are hearing me. Still hearing me, Chris? Because I unmuted. All right, fingers crossed. Thank you, guys.
Well, we could just start from the top. Okay, well, hi there, Zoomer. Sorry you couldn't hear us before. Let us say the covenant together. We'll see it on the screen in just a minute. Okie doke. Love is the doctrine of this congregation, the quest for truth, its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge, freedom, to serve others in community, thus do we covenant together. And now we will have a stewardship moment from Bobby Bollinger.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Bobby Bollinger, and I've been a member of Granite Peak for 24 years. I was a preacher's kid, and I was raised in the Unitarian Church where my dad was a minister. After attending church every Sunday morning in my youth, I became unchurched for 30 years following college graduation, as I lived in a small town with no access to a UU congregation. And frankly, the UU denomination was the only one that ever made any sense to me. Upon moving to Prescott in the late 1990s, I visited Granite Peak and was drawn in by the energy and the vitality of the then very small congregation. Over the past 24 years, I have watched this congregation grow, hire its own full-time minister, establish a religious education program for children and adults, purchase its own building, and become a driving social justice influence in the greater Prescott area. Presently, I serve as vice president of the board, a member of the choir, a member of both the services auction team and the leadership development team, and I always look forward to my monthly meetings with my wonderful women's group. Having been a business owner for 16 years, I am acutely aware of the importance of our stewardship campaign, which will begin in March. Yes, we all come to Granite Peak for spiritual uplifting, community, learning, sharing, and program participation. But behind it all is the monetary necessity of paying our staff, our mortgage, the utilities, insurance, and for programming. This congregation is supported almost completely by our membership. To meet our operating expenses for the coming year, our current pledge goal is just over $243,000. Because of Granite Peak's importance to me, and because I had fewer expenses during the pandemic, I'm increasing my pledge this year to do my part in helping us reach this goal. If it is possible for you to consider doing the same, I encourage you to do so. But regardless, please welcome your steward, who will be calling on you shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. I know that the reasons she talked about for why she loves Granite Peak are what Patrick and I were talking to Doug and Amy about, why we love it so much too. Our tradition of joys and concerns may be different now, but we still continue to struggle with sorrows and to find joys to celebrate. Let us be silent for a moment as we keep in our hearts and prayers all the people living in the Ukraine and surrounding areas. For all the concerns and joys not spoken aloud today, may our spirit embrace you and our love fill your heart. So may it be. Please sing these words of comfort if you are on Zoom or hum along here in person. As we prepare to take the offering this morning, let us embrace the feeling of connection and community that we have when we gather here each week. Let us remember that this congregation and its programs are supported by your generosity. We also give back to the greater community through our Seeds of Support program. This month's recipient is Hungry Kids Project, which provides weekend food within 4 adjoining districts of Prescott, Humboldt, Chino Valley, and Mare. Donations go directly to purchasing food, and please read about them in your order of service. To give during this distance time, go to prescottuu.org. On the bottom left-hand side, click the word donate to contribute. The link is also available in the chat on this video. And our offertory music today is an original piece by Mary Lou, so enjoy. Beautiful, Mary Lou. Thank you. We acknowledge the generosity of spirit expressed through this offering. What is given in love is received in gratitude. Blessed be.
Before I do the reading, first of all, can you all see me on Zoom and hear me? Good to see your faces as well as the faces here in the sanctuary. Before I read the reading that is the basis for my reflections with you today, let me tell you a little bit about AZIPL. So before we move into what I hope will be a transformational part of the message, let me tell you just a little bit of informational. We've been around for about 10 years. AZIPL, Arizona Interfaith Power and Light, is a part of a national organization. There are 40 state affiliates around the country, and we are all interfaith. So here in Arizona, we are connected with 100 congregations, synagogues, mosques, and temples and churches around the state. And we see the issues we face as being not just environmental or economic or political, but deeply, deeply spiritual. You know, the basis of global warming is apathy, is greed, is selfishness. And the way we address that is through a spiritual approach. We sound like a utility, but we're not. We don't have enough dark money to be a utility. But we are about generating energy, for moral energy, for caring for the earth, the planet that we have been blessed with. When Patrick was president of our board, we emphasized the idea of sage. It's one of those wonderful words that has many meanings. So sage is the color of green in the desert. Sage is something we use to cook with and spice. Sage we use for blessings. Sage also means wise. So it stands for, in our work, spirited activist greening the earth. And when Patrick was president, we gave away Sage Awards to congregations and to individuals who were doing good work. But we've broadened it since then. So we now have a curriculum that I hope you may be interested in called Sage Congregation. A lot of churches and mosques and synagogues want to do something about climate justice, but they're not sure what to do or how to get started. So we've created this curriculum that helps congregations know what to do or have some ideas about what they might do in the area of worship, in the area of education, in the area of advocacy, and in the area of action. And we've also had SAGE interviews. We just started this month with some African-American leaders in Arizona, talking about what it means to be a spirited activist greening the earth. And those are available on our website. And also, if you sign up for our newsletter, which I can give you information about, you can find them there. I'll say one other thing. We do a lot of work trying to advocate for renewable energy. And this week, our hearts are broken with what's happening in Ukraine and Russia's attack. And it struck me this morning that Putin really has this over a barrel, not just a cannon, a tank barrel, or a gun barrel, but also a gas and oil barrel. We're afraid to put sanctions on that area of the Russian economy because we're all dependent in our economy. And, you know, we wonder, will Americans be willing to make the sacrifices that we might need if gas prices go up? So it's yet another reason for us to advocate for renewable energy. One of the things we do that is kind of fun, and even though I'm not Catholic, we have done what we call an eco-fessional. So as you can see, it's a cardboard box painted mahogany brown, and we let people confess their ecological sins. And then I've got penances that I hand out to people, things they can do. And, you know, it serves a couple purposes. First of all, it calls what we do to the environment, not just a mistake or a faux pas or miscalculation, but, you know, the strongest language we have. It's a sin against creation, against the earth, against our neighbor. But we do it in kind of a light way with the eco-fessional. It's such a polarizing issue in our society that we try to use humor and we try to use storytelling as a way to bridge the gulfs that exist between us. So there was a climate event and there was a Franciscan priest with his brown robes on, and I approached him with my eco-fessional and asked if he wanted to confess his ecological sin. Shar is here and knows this priest personally. So whenever I see him, we joke about this. He confessed his ecological sin, but of course I can't tell you what it was. And then I gave him a penance. You know, I've got this stack of cards that I just handed him the top card. He looked at it, smiled, and handed it back to me and said, "I don't think this is a very good one for me." I read it. It says, shower with a partner. So that's one of the things that we do with our work, trying to advocate for renewable energy and climate action. And this is where I may need your help.
Do I get to saw you in half?
Thank you. Vanna White. So the reading comes from Thich Nhat Hanh. I was reading his book, Zen and the Art of Saving the Planet, in the week when he died, so it was especially poignant. This is from Love Letters to the Earth. Everything outside us and everything inside comes from the earth. We often forget the planet we are living on has given us all the elements that make up our bodies. The water in our flesh, our bones, all the microscopic cells inside our bodies, all come from the earth and are part of the earth. The earth is not just the environment we live in. We are the earth, and we are always carrying her within us. Realizing this, we can see that the earth is truly alive. We are a living, breathing manifestation of this beautiful and generous planet. Knowing this, we can begin to transform our relationship to the earth. We can begin to walk differently and to care for her differently. We will fall completely in love with the earth. When we are in love and someone or something with someone or something, there is no separation between ourselves and that person or thing we love. We do whatever we can for them, and this brings us great joy and nourishment. This is the relationship each of us can have with the earth. This is the relationship each of us must have with the earth if the earth is to survive, and we are to survive as well. So it's been said that in order to stay spiritually alive, you need to fall in love at least 3 times a day. And I know what you're thinking. Geez, if I fell in love 3 times a day, that could threaten my significant relationships. But I would suggest to you that there are enough ponderosa pines with snow on the boughs, enough Arizona sunsets, enough cactus wrens, enough saguaro cacti, enough cardinals, enough chipmunks running across Patrick and Leslie's driveway this morning, enough to fall in love 3 times a day from here to eternity, much less to the end of our short and fragile lives. Adam and Eve were in love. Do you know the place? It's a garden where the sounds are fuller and the colors are brighter and the living is better than any other place in the world. Love is a garden, and that's where Adam and Eve lived. The thing they loved to do was to get up and go to work. Now, this was before production quotas and time clocks and alarms, so they just worked for the joy of it. The thing that Eve liked to do more than anything else is to work in the field. She'd get out her scythe and she'd cut down the wheat in the field and feel the sun on her bare skin. The thing that Adam loved to do more than anything else was bake bread. He'd take the wheat that Eve had harvested and make it into flour, and then a little salt and a little water, and he'd knead that bread and he'd bury his fists deep into that dough. And he liked the way it folded around his wrist as he pounded that bread, getting it ready to bake. After work, they would go for a walk with their friend God in the cool of the day. They'd go down by this deep, clear blue pool, and they'd go, well, we'd call it skinny dipping. but they just called it swimming. And then they'd crawl up on this rock and they dry themselves off in the sun. And Adam would turn to Eve often and say, Eve, you are the most beautiful woman in the world. Of course, she didn't know about Adam would say to Eve, you are the most beautiful woman in the world. She didn't know about Holly Berry or Jennifer Aniston. And often Eve would turn to Adam and say, Adam, you are the most handsome man in the world. Of course, she didn't know about Denzel Washington or Matthew McConaughey. Actually, there was a lot that Adam and Eve didn't know. They didn't know that in 1974, the Mets took the World Series. They didn't know that in 1962, Miss Texas was crowned Miss USA. They didn't know that ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. They didn't know that Adam was supposed to be taller than Eve and that his nose was really too large for his face. They didn't know that Eve had this unusually large space between her two front teeth that could be repaired for $6,500. There was a lot that Adam and Eve didn't know, but it didn't matter because they were in love. One day they're home and they get a knock on the door. Adam gets up to answer the door. They didn't know they had a door. They never had anybody knock at the door before. And there on the porch stood this tall, slender fellow. Adam couldn't see his face. He had his hat pulled down close around his eyes, and all Adam could see was this long, red, bifurcated tongue lashing the air. At his feet, or where his feet should be, there was this black case, a black leather case that had gold embossed letters on it that said Britannica. Because he was selling encyclopedias. And Adam and Eve bought a set. And really, it improved their life a great deal. Another door opened and they ended up into the information age. They learned all kinds of things that they didn't know before. They found out that Eve could order this little Kubota tractor that would help her with her farm work instead of the scythe. Adam found out that he could order a KitchenAid bread maker, and it made their lives a lot easier. But there were also some complications. I mean, they became intellectuals. An intellectual is somebody who sort of confuses thought with action. They think that once they've thought something, they've actually accomplished something, whether or not they do anything with that knowledge or not. They became intellectuals. And then they started, Eve would read from the encyclopedia and Adam would read from the encyclopedia, and she had her knowledge and he had his knowledge, and they would fight about his facts and fight about her facts. And there were these arguments that were created between them, and they didn't notice that the garden was declining while they were arguing. One day, they were walking through the woods and they saw this encyclopedia salesman up in a tree with a laptop computer just typing away like crazy. And they both were curious, so they went up and they said, "What are you doing? What is that?" And the encyclopedia salesman said, "It's an apple." And after that, they lost it altogether. I mean, they spent all their time surfing the web and on Facebook and social media, and they didn't notice while the power lines came in and the strip malls were built and hate radio came in and the garden declined and the fruit fell from the trees unharvested and rotted on the ground. And one day they looked around and they said, "What happened to the garden?" And they found themselves outside the garden in the land of Nod. And they joined a nice UU church somewhere and got very involved in the church. And Adam got a job with Wildflower Bakery as a manager, and Eve got a job with the Department of Agriculture as a computer specialist. And they went about with their life as best they could. Sometimes in the cool of the day, they'd go for a walk with their friend God. And they go down by Mrs. McCurdy's place. She had this picket fence, and she was raising honeysuckle and jasmine. And God would suggest to them, you smell that? And it reminded them of some place. They couldn't quite remember where. And then they'd go down Center Street past Quail Ridge Estates, because the quail actually used to run there. And God would suggest to them, as the sun was setting and the bright colors of the sunset would go shining through this red vine maple, and it looked like it was frickin' on fire. And God would say to them, do you see that? And it reminded them of a time they couldn't quite remember when. But they went home and they decided, Adam decided he was going to bake bread, not just with the KitchenAid bread maker, but with his own hands. And Eve decided she was going to plant seeds in a garden. And together they decided they were going to make a generous contribution to Arizona Interfaith Power and Light. And they decided that they would do their best to make this corner of the world in which they were living a little brighter, a little more colorful, and the sounds a little richer, and they'd pay attention more than they had before. So one of the things that we've done is try to encourage people to fall in love. People protect what they love. So fall in love. And the second thing we've encouraged people to do is tell stories. We think that if we give people facts, that they will be convinced, and we've learned it doesn't work. But if you can tell a compelling story that will bridge the differences that exist between us culturally, that can make a difference. We're so divided. So we were at a UU church in Chandler, Valley Unitarian Universalist Church, and we had an event that we called Sacred Earth Common Ground. We invited 3 communities to come together, a Jewish synagogue, an evangelical community, and VUU, Valley Unitarian Universalist. So they come into this building and they're huddling in their little tribes, looking suspiciously at the other. The evangelicals are seeing all the UU symbols from all over the world, different religious traditions, and they're thinking, oh my God, what are we doing here? And they're about ready to walk out the door, but just before they do, we gather them together and we have citizen artists present a poem, a story, a song, a dance, an art piece about sacred earth. And then we gather them together in mixed groups of 8 people. And we invite them to tell a 3-minute story about some place, some time where they stood on holy ground. And one story inspires another story, and there's laughter, and there's community, and there's communion. And by the end of the evening, as we're serving prickly pear lemonade and mesquite chocolate chip cookies, you can't tell one group from another group, one tribe from another tribe. United by stories, united by the beauty of the earth and experiences that they've had in nature. So I'm hoping that we can replicate that event here, not just with Granite UU people, but inviting Char to bring her Catholic community here and an evangelical community. And I don't know if Prescott is as divided as we are down in Phoenix. But maybe storytelling can be a way to bring us together, and creation can bring us together. After all, we all need clean air and water to drink. May it be so.
Thank you so much, Doug. I've heard him tell stories before, and it's just mesmerizing to listen to him. So I'm so glad you came, and I'm sure we would love to have you back. Well, for those present in the sanctuary, and if you're able, we would like for you to stand and sing Blue Boat Home.
This is Benacht from John O'Donohue. On the day when the weight deadens on your shoulders and you stumble, may the red earth rise to balance you. And when your eyes freeze behind the gray window and the ghost of loss gets into you, may a flock of colors, red, indigo, and azure blue, awaken in you a meadow of delight. And when the canvas tears on the currach of thought and the black sea deepens beneath you, may there appear to you across the waters a path of yellow moonlight to guide you home. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of light be yours. May the frequency of the ocean be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours. And so may a soft wind fold these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to mind your life. Amen.
With the extinguishing of our chalice, our worship time has ended, and now our service begins. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. I now invite you to take as much time as you wish to visit with your friends and visitors online or here in person in the sanctuary. For those on Zoom, you may go into the breakout rooms or wait in the main room while we greet any newcomers who are here in the sanctuary and join our guest speaker in the Davis Hall. For those of you here in person and would like to speak with Doug, we will meet today in Davis right after the service. All right. Well, then our service is over. We're so happy you all were here. And if some of you would like to participate in the Echo Confessional, we will see you soon.